So when your uncle died, who was the four, you decided to move away from the Four Corner Hustlers? Yes, sir. So did you either stop hanging around Four Corner Hustlers or hang around them less? I hung around them less. And now you said you were hanging out more in the K-Town area? Yes, sir. What were some of the streets you were hanging out now? Congress and Costner, Jackson and Costner, Adams and Costner, Jackson and Kilbourne, Wilcox and Kilbourne. Mr. Harris, do you have a sense of how far away these two areas are where you're hanging out as a Four Corner Hustler and where you were hanging out as a gangster disciple? Yes, sir. How far? Maybe about 3 minutes away. So not far? Maybe a 3-minute drive, not far. Now, as a young Four Corner Hustler, were you actively selling drugs on the block? No, sir. Did you start selling drugs as a gangster disciple? Yes, sir. And how old were you when you switched to the gangster disciples? I'd say 15, 16. What types of drugs did you sell as a gangster disciple? I sold marijuana, crack cocaine, and heroin. Where did you sell these drugs? Adams and Costner, Congress and Costner, Jackson and Kilbourne, those areas. Where did you obtain the drugs? From my friend Wee Baby. Wee Baby? Yes, sir. And who is Wee Baby? He was a high-ranking member of the Gangster Disciples. Was he higher in the Gangster Disciples than you? Yes, sir. At the time? Yes, sir. And he provided the drugs to you? Yes, sir. You mentioned Adams and Costner. You sold drugs at Adams and Costner? Yes, sir. What was the time frame that you were selling drugs at Adams and Costner? I'd say from the end of 98 to like the beginning of 2002. And what were you selling at Adams and Costner? Marijuana. And do you know what block that was where you were selling near Adams and Costner? The 4400 block of Adams. And did you sell with other gangster disciples? Yes, sir. What other gangster disciples were selling with you? My brother Cedric, my other brother Little Freddie, my friend Travis. That was it. So your brothers Cedric and Freddie and Travis would sell too? Yes, sir. Were they all gangster disciples with you? Yes, sir. And you were on the 4400 block of Adams? Yes, sir. Do you know if anyone sold drugs on the 4300 block of Adams? Yes, sir. Who do you know sold drugs on the 4300 block of Adams? Carlos, a guy named Carlos, a guy named Rio, Lil Ronnie, Marcus. Do you have an understanding who controlled the drug sales on the 4300 block of Adams? Yes, sir. Who did, as far as you understood? Lil Ronnie. Your Honor, if I could have one moment. Okay. Your Honor, may I have the ELMO to publish an exhibit that's already in evidence? Mr. Harris, I'm putting up on the screen a map that is marked as Government Exhibit 402. Do you see that? Yes, sir. And just to give you a sense of where this is, you have Costner in the center of the screen. You have Adams across the top of the screen. Yes, sir. You testified that you and some other GDs were selling drugs on the 4400 block of Adams? Yes. Now, the map's a little cut off at the top, but if you could, you can make a mark on that screen in front of you if you press the screen. Okay. So if you would, press the screen as to where you would sell drugs with Freddie, Cedric, and Travis. This area right here. So for the record, you've made a mark on the 4400 block of Adams on the south side of the street? Yes, sir. And you said that nearby there were other people selling drugs, namely Carlos and little Ronnie and Rio? Yes. Where would you see Carlos, little Ronnie, and Rio selling drugs? They would be on this side of Costner. So for the records, you made a mark across Costner on the 4300 block of Adams? Yes, sir. So let me ask you, Mr. Harris, you were a gangster disciple? Yes, sir. Were the people across the street gangster disciples? No. And you were both selling drugs? Yes. Did you ever talk to the people across the street? Yes, sir. Would you say you were friendly with the people across the street? Yes, sir. Did you talk to Carlos? Yes, sir. Do you know if Carlos is still alive? No. No, you don't know, or do you believe he's... No, he's deceased. Do you know when he died? I say, if I'm not mistaken, I say like early 2000, 2001, and somewhere around those years. Did you know where he was killed? Not exactly. Were you present when he was killed? No. Do you know what type of drugs were sold by Carlos and Lil Ronnie on the 4300 block of Adams? Yes, sir. What types of drugs? Crack cocaine. Mr. Harris, I want to ask you some questions about Wee Baby, the person you mentioned earlier. Wee Baby, you said was a gangster disciple? Yes, sir. And he began to supply drugs to you? Yes. Did you know Wee Baby to supply drugs to any other group? Yes, sir. Which other gangs do you know Wee Baby supplied drugs to? The Four Corner Hustlers. Do you know any specific Four Corner Hustlers who you believe Wee Baby supplied drugs to? Yes, sir. Who? Brother Man. Were you ever present for any meetings between Wee Baby and Bro Man? Yes, sir. Can you estimate when these meetings occurred? I say like the year 2003. Do you know how many meetings? 2004. Do you know how many meetings you were present for? Yes. How many? 2. Where would these meetings occur? In the area of Congress and Costner, Three Stooges liquor store where we also hung out at. Is there any significance to the Three Stooges liquor store? Yes. What is it? It's like a headquarters for the gangster disciples where we all hang out at and where we meet up with people at. And where was the liquor store? Congress and Costner, the 4400 block of Congress. And these meetings that you were present for, were you with Wee Baby for these meetings or were you with Mr. Spann? I was with Wee Baby. And what did you understand the purpose of these meetings were? For Wee Baby to supply crack cocaine to Brother Man. And do you know how much crack cocaine was supplied by Wee Baby to Bro Man? No, not exactly. And you said there were 2 occasions you're aware of? Yes. Now, you testified that when you were a young man, you were a four-corner hustler and you saw Labar Spann quite often. It sounds like? Yes, sir. Almost every day? Yes, sir. And when your uncle died, did you not see Labar Spann as much? No, I didn't see him as much. Did you associate? Let me ask you this. Did there come a time when you were older when you associated with persons who you learned were close with Labar Spann? Yes, sir. And when is that when you began to associate with other persons who were close to Labar Spann? I'd say around the year of 2011, 2012. So we're talking 10 years later, you began to associate with other persons close to Mr. Spann? Yes, sir. Do you know a person who goes by the nickname Lil Boss or Main Main? Yes, sir. If I may have the government computer at the podium? Mr. Harris, I'm showing you an exhibit that's already in evidence, Government Exhibit 138A. Do you recognize that person? Yes, sir. Who is that? Main Main. How do you know him? He used to hang out with us when he was younger. He used to hang around, sell drugs for us, and sell drugs for us. When you say us, who are you referring to? The GDs. Now, was he a GD? No, sir. Did you associate him with a different gang? Yes, sir. Which gang did you associate this person with? The Four Corner Hustlers. And I'm sorry, how did you refer to this person? Like, what was the name you referred to him as? His first name was Main Main. That was the name he always went by. But when he started hanging with the GDs, we started calling him Lil Boss. Do you know his real name? Yes, sir. What's his real name? Rontrell Turnip Seed. And you said he was a four-corner hustler? Yes, sir. And did you associate him with Mr. Spann? Yes, sir. Would you see them together? Yes. Would you say that you were close with Main Main? Yes, sir. Mr. Harris, I want to ask you about a conversation you had with Man Man regarding a person named Vic. Okay. Do you remember that conversation? Yes, sir. Can you estimate when that conversation occurred? I say approximately earlier 2012. Maybe the middle of 2012. Do you remember where you were? Yes, sir. Where were you? On the 4500 block of Jackson. Were you in a car or on the street? In a car. And who else was in the car with you? Me and Main Main, just me and him. And what were you and Main Main doing? Smoking weed, drinking promethazine. What did Main Main say to you about a person named Vic? I was telling Main Main how Vic had sold my mom a building which was already foreclosed or fraudulent, and I was telling him how wrong he was for that, and that's when Main Main went on to tell me that he was already being extorted by Brother Man. So you're in a car with Main Main, and you told him about this guy named Vic? Uh-huh. Had defrauded your mother? Yes, sir. What had Vic done? Excuse me? What had Vic done to defraud your mother? He had sold what we call bogus property it really belonged to the bank, but he told my mom that the building belonged to them and she bought it and gave them the money for the building. But come to find out, the building really belonged to the bank. Did your mom have to vacate the property? Yes, sir. So you were recounting this to Main? Yes, sir. And what did Main say in response to that? He was talking about how he's a scary bitch ass, like those words, and then he said that brother man was extorting him and getting money from him. Getting money from who? Vic. Do you understand Vic to be associated with a gang? No, sir. Did you understand Vic to be a person with money? Yes, sir. How did you understand Vic obtained money? Through a lot of fraud, doing a lot of fraud. They had a couple of chop shops, couple of properties that they were selling, and his father, Simo, owned a chop shop. What's a chop shop? Where they take stolen cars and resell them and sell them for parts and everything. Did Main tell you how many times Broman had extorted Vic? No. Did Main say how much money Vic had paid Broman? No. To be clear, this is information that Main told you? Yes, sir. And you associated Man with Mr. Spann? Yes, sir. I want to ask you about another conversation you had with a person named Metaman. Do you know that person? Yes, sir. Do you know Metaman's real name? Yes, sir. What is it? Demetrius Wyatt. And you said Wyatt, like Wyatt? Yes, sir. How do you know Metaman? I met him through my brother LaQuantas. LaQuantas? Yes, sir. Do you associate Metaman with a gang? Yes, sir. Which gang? Four Corner Hustlers. Do you associate him with Mr. Spann? Yes, sir. When you first met Man, were you a GD or a Four Corner Hustler? I was a GD. Do you recall a conversation with Metaman about Broman? Yes, sir. Do you recall when this conversation occurred? I'd say approximately the year of 2011, 2012. Do you remember where you were? I just know we was in the car riding around. Do you remember if you were on the west side, the south side, the north side? The west side. West side? Yes, sir. Do you recall if there was anyone in the car with you and Metaman? It was just me and him. And what did Metaman say to you and you say to him about Broman? He was telling me how he had went to court earlier that day, and when he came from court, he ran into this guy named Dollar, and they was walking to the car together by the bypass because both of their cars were parked in the bypass on California. He said once they got to the parking lot, that Brother Man was sitting in the parking lot waiting for Dollar, and once they saw Brother Man asked Dollar, "Why you hiding from me?" or "Why you ducking me?" or something like that. So again, this is a conversation you're having with Metaman? Yes, sir. And Metaman told you that Metaman was at court recently? Yes, sir. Did he say which court? Cook County Court Office on 26th in California. So not this court building? No, sir. And Metaman said that when he was walking out, he saw Broman? Yes, sir. And another person? Yes, sir. Now, was Metaman, based on your understanding, was Metaman with Broman? No. And who was this other person that Metaman told you he saw? Dollar. Who is Dollar? He's a guy from the west side of Chicago that makes a lot of money selling weed. Selling weed, you said? Yes, sir. Do you associate Dollar with a gang? No, sir. Do you know where Dollar sells weed? The areas of Leamington and Washington, Monroe and Lockwood, in those areas. That was just the spots. And if I could ask for the government computer at the podium again? Mr. Harris, I'm showing you an exhibit that's already in evidence, Government Exhibit 134. Do you recognize that person? Yes, sir. Who is that? That's Dollar. And forgive me if I asked you, do you know Dollar's real name? I just know his last name. What's his last name? I think it's Tankson. And you said Dollar sold weed in the area of Leamington? Yes, sir. And I think you said a lot of weed? Yes, sir. Based on your understanding, did Dollar make a lot of money? Yes, sir. And so Metaman told you that he walked out of the courthouse and saw Broman and Dollar? Yes, sir. And what, according to Metaman, did Broman say to Dollar? He asked Dollar why he was hiding from him, and was he ducking him? According to Metaman, what did Dollar say in response? He told him that he wasn't hiding from him, and that if he wanted to meet him on Monroe, he can meet him on Monroe. Then he told Brother Man to just ask Metaman. Metaman he stated, "Don't put me in that. I have nothing to do with that." So Metaman tried to stay out of it? Yes, sir. Did Metaman tell you anything else about this conversation? No, sir. And again, that is based on what Metaman told you? Yes.